So this is an article that I thought looked quite interesting, posted a couple of days ago, and I thought we should cover it. So it's software development topics I've changed my mind on after 10 years in the industry. And there's actually a part one, which was published 4 years ago. Shall we have a quick look at that? I'll try and not spend too much time on this one and then come back to this one. Uh, so, same topic, but it's 6 years in the industry. This is 2021. Things I now believe which past me would have squabbled with. Type languages are better when you're working on a team of people with various experience levels. To be honest, I'm one of those people, I don't know about you, I struggle to see the point of something until I run into a problem, and that is like the solution, if you will. Like I had the same thing with Docker. I didn't get Docker for ages, and then I started using it, and then I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then I understood it. And this was a long time ago. But the same thing happened to me with TypeScript, if I'm really honest. And I didn't like it until I was on a project and I was like, oh, a lot of these problems would have been solved if we had TypeScript and we wouldn't have run into these problems. And because right now, yeah, like current code base is pure JavaScript, and that's a pain because things happen that shouldn't be able to happen if you had TypeScript. So anyway, so sprint retros have. Oh, so stand-ups are actually useful for keeping an eye on newbies. I think stand-ups in general are important, especially if you work remotely, I think. It's good to speak to your team every day, even if it's for 15 minutes. I don't really believe in long stand-ups. They should be a stand-up, 15 minutes. Just everyone say their piece. And yeah, they're talking about newbies. I'm going to change that to juniors. I do think juniors have a tendency to not sort of say when they're stuck on something. And it's sort of for you to sort of gauge whether you think they're stuck and reach out. And I've done that in the past, and they're usually quite appreciative. So if you think, a junior is on a ticket for too long, just reach out to them and see if they're struggling. So yeah, I agree, stand-ups are good. Sprint retrospectives have their place as long as they're for actual course correction. This is basically saying sprint retros are good as long as they're actually good. And yeah, I think that's true. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of retros, but of course, if something good comes out of them, you can't say they're bad. And usually there's a bit of fun in there too. So I'm not against retros. I think they're good. As long as you're in an environment where they actually want constructive criticism, or like constructive feedback, I should say. If you're not really in that environment, I find them pointless. Is it just there for show, or are you actually trying to improve the flow? So as long as you've got a good Scrum Master, which I do, it's all good. So devs shouldn't be isolated or left to just code. Bypassing TPMs, PMs, and talking directly to the customer always reveals more about the problem. I do think this is true, and Palantir actually pretty much made their business of it. They just sent their engineers to the site, and they would go there and build the software that the customers needed. And I think that's brilliant. I think if you can speak directly to clients as a dev, I think you should. Unfortunately, because of processes, you don't always have that opportunity. But I do agree. I actually really do think this is good. And often, when you're speaking to a client, it's like you actually understand the problem better than when it goes through, say, a non-technical person. Because they might just not give all of the information. If you can, I think just as an engineer, you can sometimes see like a bigger picture. Not necessarily, though. So software architecture matters probably more than anything else. I think this is becoming increasingly true in the age of AI, which we weren't there 4 years ago, to be fair. But yeah, it does matter. A bad implementation of abstraction causes no net harm to the code. A bad abstraction or missing layer causes everything to rot. Yeah, once you're sort of made architectural decisions, and then somewhere down the line, it can be really difficult to implement the most simple thing. Anyone who's sort of experienced that knows what I'm talking about. So yeah, architecture is important. I'd like to learn more about architecture. I wouldn't say I really know a lot. Java isn't that terrible of a language. Hard disagree. No, I'm joking. For me, it's more that I'm joking because I've not really used Java much. It's sort of one of the only languages, that's not true. It's one of many languages I haven't touched. I sort of went C, Python, PHP, JavaScript. Obviously, these are all very different languages, but I've just never really needed Java. Although where I currently work, there's a lot of Java on the back end, so I should probably learn it for more opportunities. Clever code isn't usually good code. No, I hate clever code. I hate it. I detest it. I am a firm believer, as long as your architecture is good and code can be written quickly, which I think is what's important. That's the most important thing. Clarity trumps all other concerns. Agree. I really hate clever code. I hate it. Like if you have to, with tools like ChatGPT now it's easier because I can just say, here's what the code looks like, give me what the inputs and outputs look like, and I can sort of visualize it. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of complicated code. So bad code can be written in any paradigm, sure. So-called best practices are contextual and not broadly applicable, sure. Following them blindly makes you an idiot, sure. Designing scalable systems when you don't need to makes you a bad engineer. I've always struggled with like good engineers and bad engineers type thing. I don't think I'm like the most, like I think I can learn anything, but I don't think I've ever cared about like the best solution that much. I've always cared about building something quickly which works, and it's like only when you run into problems should that solution change. Of course, if you anticipate, I don't know, say the system needing to be scalable from the get-go, let's say, you work for, I don't know, Google or Amazon, like, a company where you know immediately that that software needs to be scalable. Obviously, it's different. But my point is, solve the actual problem you have when you have it. And, again, this comes down to good architecture. If you have good architecture, then it shouldn't be a problem going forward. Static analysis is actually useful. Agree. Dry is about avoiding specific problem, not an end goal unto itself. Yeah, I sometimes hate dry. The amount of times in my life at places where I've had to implement dry, which by the way is don't repeat yourself, which is about writing the same or similar code multiple times. I just think sometimes it's more simple to, have to repeat yourself. Not always. Obviously, you should aim to minimize that, but I don't think you should go out of your way and build something abstract and complex just to make it the code a little bit better, and usually that's more complex. Again, I'm not saying don't use dry principle. I think it's good mostly, but it's not always the answer. In general, RDBMs is better than NoSQL. That's relational database management systems. Yeah, agreed. I remember ages ago. I mean, it's probably changed now, but I remember years ago, I read an article about, it was a really long article about when you should use MongoDB, and the conclusion after like 20 minutes was never. Obviously, that's a bit harsh, but so yeah, ignore what I just said. It was a while ago. Functional programming is another tool, not a panacea. I don't know what that is, I'm afraid. I don't know why people are so elitist about things. Okay, it's not a remedy for all evils. Yeah. Yagni, solid, dry, in that order. What is Yagni? I feel like I should know. You aren't going to need it. You aren't going to need it. Should be... Yeah. This is sort of what I was talking about. So I didn't even know this anagram. But yeah, this is what I was talking about. Like, solve the problem and add the functionality when you need it. And solid principles, forget. See, DuckDuckGo, man. DuckDuckGo. You call yourself a search engine. That's that. I mean, I don't really ever look at this, to be honest. So let's see. Pencil and paper are the best programming tools. I used to use this a lot, when I started out in my job, in like the professional world, I would write things down. Now less so. I feel like I'm sort of good enough to not need that most of the time, although I still sometimes like typing out on a notepad. But that's usually when I can't like concentrate, and then I'm like, okay, what is it that I'm actually doing? Adding more technology in response to a minor problem is rarely a good call. Agreed. You want simplicity is king, in my opinion. You don't want a million different services being like connected together, because then you need to glue them and you need to manage all the states and all that sort of stuff. Like have it, yeah. What is the source of truth? 90%, maybe 93% of project managers could probably disappear tomorrow. I feel like this is even more true now. After performing over 100 interviews, I can say interviewing is thoroughly broken. I also have no idea how to make it better. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people agree with that. The problem with the reason you need interviewing is because, or more complex interviewing at times, is because people lie on their CVs. You know, I've interviewed people, and I've seen people write 15 years of experience with a programming language, and then they don't even know how to write a for loop. So, yeah. I'm not really. By the way, I'm not a big fan of technical interviews, really, but I see why you need them. Uh, Maybe something better would be to just like, I guess you have probations, Maybe give everyone just like a 3-month probation and see how they're doing. I don't know. I don't know the solution. Things I now believe which past me wouldn't have squabbled with. So that was 4 years ago. Hopefully they don't disagree with too many things they've said, because, I feel like I agreed with a lot of the things. So things I've changed my mind on, so simple is not a given, it takes constant work. Yeah. The problem, it's like temporary solutions, right? When you have a temporary solution for something, it ends up being a permanent solution because you're working on that at that point, but then you have other problems come up and you work on those problems, other tickets. So, and when you do a patchy fix, it's just not a good idea. And we're all guilty of it. Simple is not a given. I know I just answered that. I'm just trying to think about it a bit more. I guess nothing's a given. Yeah, it is easy to overcomplicate things. There's no pride in managing or understanding complexity. I feel like they already agreed with that sort of 4 years ago. I feel like from what they wrote, I could also tell they were a bit like me, where this idea for complexity is, you don't need the complexity. You want to remove the complexity. It shouldn't be an elitist thing. It should be about being easy to work with and being able to build as quickly as possible. Type languages are essential on teams with mixed experiences. I just want to check. I feel like those are the things they still agree. Yeah, type languages are good. Although I do still like Python. Boo. Java is a great language because it's boring. Again, like my previous comment, clearly Java's good. Lots of people use it. Java's everywhere. And there's many different sort of Java-based languages as well now, which are maybe a bit more easy to use. So there's that as well. REPLs are not useful design tools, though they are useful exploratory tools. So many acronyms. I know I should know these. Replit, I've actually got that open somewhere. Most programming should be done long before a single line of code is written. Do I agree with that? I don't know. I don't think I do agree with that. I kind of like fast development. I actually think I like to often get something working and then sort of work backwards from there. But again, this assuming there's a good architecture for you to work in. Front-end development is a nightmare, world of cascade awfulness I no longer enjoy. I'm doing a lot of front-end development at the moment, even though, like, historically I sort of did embedded and then back-end. And again, it comes down to architecture. I feel like sometimes things, it's like difficult to build simple things still. I mean, front end development has always been a bit of a nightmare because there's so many tools. So as long as you have people trying to simplify it rather than just keep adding, I don't know, more complexity, I think it's okay. Elegance is not a real metric. Agreed. Also, elegant code is usually complex code. It's like, this is not elegant. This is just needlessly complex. Good management is invaluable. I went most of my career before seeing it done well. DynamoDB is a good database. I've not used it. Objects are extremely good at what they are good at. Blind devotion to functional is done. Yeah, I think I agree with both of those. I've worked somewhere before where everything was an object. It was Python and it was like a glue between multiple services. And it was horrible to work with. It was like, sometimes an object would be like 10 classes deep. And it was honestly a real pain to work with. Engineering is mostly about communication. I think everything is. And I think this is going to even increase, with all these AI tools. Everything is about communication. At the end of the day, engineers are trying to solve problems that people have. So it's about communication. Never go full monad in Java. I don't understand that sentence. An algebraic structure and category theory. Okay, looks like it's a thing in Haskell as well. Someone will have to explain that to me. The career planner is a cool mistress. Leave that for now. If you think something is easy, that's a sure sign I don't understand it. If I think something is easy, it's a sure sign I don't understand it. This is very true. And the best thing you can usually try and do is like explain it. If you can't explain it, then you don't understand it. You have to give younger devs room to explore and make mistakes. Absolutely. Just help people. It's about getting things done at the end of the day and making them better devs. I like helping people. You have to actively invest in improving your soft skills. I think that's a fair take. And investments pay back immediately. I think soft skills are like any other skills, I suppose, that you can actively work to make them better. But also, because it's like just some skills, because everyone has like a certain level of skill already, it's probably not something you focus on, if that makes sense. Very bad abstractions exist in general. Application development, just write the code you need. Yeah. Contrarily, library development is about abstractions. Spend time hunting for an algebra. I just still don't understand why there's so many frameworks. ORMs are the devil in the languages and all implementations. Just write the damn SQL. They're great until you hit a limitation, and then you're trying to... I don't know if I agree with this. I guess you can make your own ORM. I like it. And then the thing is, they don't force you to... You can always, generally speaking, you can still just use SQL if needed. If you reach something that your specific ORM can't do. But yeah, I can understand why you would say that. But I actually can't remember the last time I wrote an SQL query directly. It sounds bad. I used to always do it, but not for a long time. The trouble with functional programming is functional programmers. Given a long enough time horizon, you'll deeply regret building on serverless functions. That's an interesting one. I've not used them much. I'm sort of working on some stuff on serverless, but yeah, I can't comment too much on that. I've not done lots of that. I feel like all these tools we've created, and basically like the best thing to do is just to rent a VPS and just build it like we always have. Use SQL, don't use serverless, and yeah, just have a simple front end, a simple back end, and that's where you should be at, apparently. And also monolith, you know, don't use microservices. I feel like we've gone like full circle to just being simple again. Types are citations we make about the world. Distributed locking is still really hard for some reason. Formal modeling and analysis is an essential skill set. I don't think I have that skill set. Formal modeling. I think it's the formal part. I think I can model and do the analysis, but isolation is the most important property of a good integration suite. Yeah. DynamoDB is the worst possible choice of general application development. Hang on. There was something in here about... I thought there was something in here about DynamoDB, but I'm clearly wrong. Oh, okay, it was in the first part. I knew I'd read something about if your workload lines up with what it's offering. That's another thing. Like, I would love to have more knowledge on tools. Like, there's so many tools, you know, front-end libraries, back-end languages, different databases, and the thing is, most of them I've always felt like can do anything you want it to do, right? You can probably use any, you know, let's say you want to build something. You can use any front-end language you want. You can use any front-end framework you want, sorry. You know, any CSS framework you want. You can use any back-end language you want. You can use any database you want. And whatever it is you're building will work. So I've always struggled and not cared much about the details of tools, which is why I don't really cover it. I don't think I'd be good at it. I wouldn't be like, here's why you should use... I mean, I could use ChatGPT and be like, when should I use this over this? But even then, I think it's one of those things where I wouldn't understand why it's better until I run into the problem. Maybe that makes me a bad dev, but that's just what I'm like. I don't think it does. Most won't care about the craft. This is like the thing with... No one cares about the craft ever. About anything. Like, unless that's what you're specifically there for, if you will. Same with games, right? People don't... like, let's say intellectual property and stuff. You know, you had that big thing with Power World, and which was then, like, allowed modders to basically turn it into Pokemon. No one cares about that. The only people that cared were, like, Nintendo. No one cares how about things are made. No one cares how expensive something is to make. They just want it. They want it to work, and they want it to be what they want it to be. So gradual, dependent. So I don't know if this is about talking about engineers here or talking about customers. I was talking about customers. There is a lot of people that just see it as a job. I think software development is quite good. I think you do have a lot of people who are passionate about it, more so than other fields. I might be wrong. That's probably an unfounded belief, but I feel like a lot of people who went into software development did it because they liked it. Gradual, dependently typed languages are the future. Gradual, dependently typed languages are the future. I don't understand this one. Someone will have to... Dependent type. Dependently typed languages. Okay, let's go back to the DuckDuckGo one. Yeah, I'm not sure on this one. You literally cannot add too many comments to test code. I challenge anyone to try to test code. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that. Like, I think tests are often quite easy to read, I find. If they're written well. I wouldn't care if someone wrote loads of comments. I also don't care too much if there isn't that many comments. Anyway. Things I have not changed my opinion on. People who stress over code style, linting rules, or other minutiae remain insane weirdos to me. Focus on more important things. I agree with this as well. It's not really my personality to stress over stuff like that. It's just not me. And there is people like that. Like, you need to do it like this or that. It's not me. I don't care. I care about getting the thing done. Code coverage has absolutely nothing to do with code quality. In many cases, it's inversely proportional. Now, by code coverage, I wonder if they mean like functionality or if they meant test coverage. I know they didn't say test coverage, they said code coverage. In which case, I guess I agree. But it was also the same for test coverage a bit. I feel like end-to-end testing is great, but I find a lot of just like small tests to like test a function as working as you want it. It's likely to be just as buggy as the code you've written. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Monoliths remain pretty cool. Facebook is a monolith, I'm pretty sure. Obviously they have lots of tools, but and I think for that reason, yeah, I think monoliths are good. They make it easier for everything to sort of be worked on, I find. The problem is when you have like multiple repositories and all these connected services, is you're constantly like changing. You're having to deal with all of that as well, rather than just like PR into one code base and maintaining it. You're having to maintain all of this, and then you're having to it becomes a nightmare, and it just takes time. It just takes more time when you separate everything out. Yeah, I like monoliths, to be honest. It's very hard to beat decades of RDBMS research and improvements. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. Like, there's no way you could build a database now that does something better, probably, than an existing relational database. Microservices require justification. They're increasingly just become assumed. It's like it's a craze, isn't it? I mean, I feel like that craze is over, but it was for a while. Everything had to be microservice architecture because it sounds great until you actually develop a working on it, and then it becomes there's just extra layers. You know, rather than getting 4 hours or like I don't know 5 hours work done in a day, you're suddenly having to spend a couple hours a day, sort of making sure everything works across microservices. Most projects, even inside of AWS, don't need to scale. Yeah, I mean it's like you get people on Reddit being like, "How can I is this website scalable?" And it's like, well, you're probably not even going to get 1,000 people looking at it, so it doesn't need to be. They still agree. Did they change the number? They said 93, maybe 95.2 project managers could disappear tomorrow. 90 to maybe 93, so they've not changed their mind. We'll see which of these are flipped at year 15, so that's another 5 years from now. Anyway, I thought that was quite cool. Let me know your thoughts on any of this, and yeah, see you in the next one.